When did someone challenge you at something you were an expert at? The property management company for my homeowners association insisted that I had received emails that I never received. So I asked them to prove that I had received them. They said they're sure I received them. I'm a software engineer and at the time I had just finished an enterprise email delivery system, like an in-house constant contact. I knew the rules of the Can Spam Act by heart. I knew exactly how their system worked. So this real bitch of a property manager said, "I know how email works. You wouldn't understand." I mentally did the arrogant knuckle crack and started to explain, very methodically, how email delivery works and how they'd track various actions. I spent about 5 minutes detailing my credentials and why I was absolutely certain they had never sent me the emails they alleged I received. When I was finished, the WA board just agreed to waive the fines. Not me, but my friend used to ride a unicycle as a kid. He worked construction and they were working at a house that had an old unicycle. The other workers tried riding it and immediately fell off. My friend walked over to it and inspected the unicycle like it was the first time he ever saw one. Them said it didn't look that difficult. They all laughed at him and he said he thought he could ride it. Eventually one of them bet him $100 he couldn't ride it. He jumped on it and immediately rode down the street. Kinda the reverse, for me. I'm a physical education teacher and I had a student that took a pretty bad tumble in class. Hit her head on the wall. Pretty clear concussion symptoms. So we get her stable, call mom and dad to come get her. Dad shows up and I start going through the concussion symptoms and treatments with him. Letting him know that a doctor's visit is probably in order. Blah blah blah. I keep going on and on about concussions. He just politely nods and thanks me. He takes daughter and leaves, and I see my principal standing behind me and he can barely contain his laughter. Turns out dad is an emergency room doctor. And he just sat there while his daughter's gym teacher gave him medical advice. Hey there, are you subscribed yet? Please do. Also leave a like on this video to help out the channel. My father trying to explain to me how computers and the internet work, after he's called me over to figure out why his computer and internet aren't working. And #X200B, edit, spoiler, it was because my mom downgraded their TV package, and they must have accidentally turned off the audio Wi-Fi, since the video Wi-Fi was still working fine. Medieval Fair, 2002. Carney running the fencing game picks me out of the crowd for being tall, and challenges me to a free bout against the master. Not a lot of people fence, so his gambit probably worked most of the time, but when he handed me that saber, I handed him his ask. By no means an expert, I'd probably rate in the 1500s, but I've played chess since I was a small child and was the best player in the middle school chess club. The guy who owned the pool hall me and my juvenile delinquent friends hung out in was talking about how dumb kids are these days and said he bet nobody in my group of hoodlums could play chess. I beat him soundly, then again in the rematch. I'm no expert, but people never ask me I can play pool. I grew up with my parents going to the pub, so as an early teen would play a lot of pool and got pretty good. There's been a number of occasions where I've got us a round of drinks or stuck it to some knob who's hogging the table. While I was in high school I was the reigning city fencing champion, in both the youth and adult tournaments. My high school decided to do a school-wide fencing unit for phys. Ed. And the coach they brought in to teach all of the students was my actual coach. During my classes, my coach naturally brought me up to help demonstrate the various moves, but for some reason one of my classmates didn't understand that I wasn't chosen at random. He started talking shit about how I looked like I didn't know what I was doing, and how he could probably kick my ass in a duel. Now, he actually was pretty good for a guy who'd never fenced before, and at the first opportunity to actually have a bout, he decided to have a go at me. I picked him apart and did not give up a single touch, and used the opportunity to practice my parry and ripostes. I admit, I took a bit of sadistic pleasure in thoroughly beating him. Afterwards, my coach made a point of congratulating the other guy for doing so well against the city champ, which changed his attitude considerably. Went to a couple's night once and the guy had wall-to-wall movies and framed posters in his basement, super into it. Mentioned I used to be a movie nerd but not so much anymore. He challenged us to a movie trivia board game, kinda in a condescending way, and I tried to politely decline, but my GF insisted we play. They went first, missed the question, then we ran the table. Never heard from them again. I'm glad you are enjoying this video. Before we continue, don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment. A beginning writer asked some advice about a basic drafting method, so I offered my point of view. Some tough guy decided to butt in and say that what I said was proof I'm not a real writer, and it was obvious I would never be published. At that time, the second or third book in my trilogy was about to be released. I asked the guy not to tell my editor that I wasn't a real writer. It happens a lot lately. I'm a microbiologist, so the number of people who have suddenly taken an interest in the subject in order to be confidently wrong about it is pretty upsetting. I'm an Academy Award-winning sound mixer and almost everyone on film sets think they know my job better than me. I have perfect pitch. It's not a thing I can turn off. Notes simply are a pitch clear as day, much like how red is clearly distinct from green. Anywho, music class in junior high. Teacher explains that Mozart had perfect pitch and walks over to the piano, plays a note and says, and just by hearing it, he'd be able to tell you what now that was. Now can any of you do that? At the time, I honestly had no idea this was rare. Raise hand. Teacher with a smug look points and me and is gobsmacked when I answer correctly with note and octave. Figures it's pure luck, so does it again and asks me to face the other way. I answer correctly again. Tries it with chords, sequences and 2 hands worth of notes. Still right every time. Ends with me playing back a short sequence after listening to it blind. That day, I learned that perfect pitch is actually kind of rare. My father-in-law challenged me about the capabilities of DVD. Specifically, he claimed that you could only have widescreen video, not 4:3, on a DVD disc. At the time I was employed as a DVD author. I ought not a good girl, the very first commercially available feature on Scenarist. I am literally acknowledged in the first edition of DVD Demystified as an expert. I had already by that time personally ought not a good girl literally hundreds of DVDs with 4:3 video. He knew all of the above at the time, yet still insisted I was wrong. My roommate who took a Psych 101 class at a prestigious university told me, a master's level therapist, that the movie Split with James McAvoy was an accurate depiction of multi-personality disorder. When we were having a couple drinks on Friday after work, I was challenged to a shooting by a colleague. Little did he know I've been shooting air rifles competitively ever since I was 13. Not to say I am the greatest, but I've made it to the national finals for my country multiple times, and came 3rd and 6th. I have all the special clothes and gear and such you need to make it to such a level. The next day, Saturday, we showed up to the range I always shoot at. It's not a day I usually train, so not many people recognize me. I beat his ass left, right and center that day. Out of 600 points, he scored about 200 to 250 if I remember correctly. I got about 580, which was about average of what I used to shoot. He had to buy me a fancy bottle of whiskey and now we shoot every 2 or 3 weeks together. Fun times. I am sorry if it's hard to follow, English is my second language. For most of 2020 so far, I am an infectious disease expert PhD from a microbiology and immunology program, and suddenly all my former high school classmates think they know more than me. They watch the news and learn a new vocabulary, and they bestow themselves a doctorate. My old roommate once told my uncle all about wine. She didn't know that he teaches classes about wine. He was a real good sport about it. Well, I am a veterinarian and I know how to prevent fleas. Them, my dog is itching and it's not fleas. Me, okay, but your dog is infested. Them, it's not fleas. Run, comb and show them hundreds. The doctor in Happy Gilmore. I empathize. Someone once tried to insist that our state didn't sell alcohol on Sundays. I've spent over a decade working in restaurants and am also an alcoholic, which she knew about but still insisted on arguing with me about it. I used to play fighting games competitively all over the world. Never made one of the top slots, but I could usually hold my own. One of my best game was Super Street Fighter 2. Went to a bar by work one day and they just so happened to have an SNES set up with SF2. I order a drink, pick random characters and just duck around for a bit. Some guy comes in and immediately starts bragging to his date that he's the best SF2 player ever. I asked him to play some games against me and offered to buy him a drink if he could beat 2 out of 3. 12 games later I am completed hammered and he finally gives up and leaves. Still don't remember getting home that night. Not an expert, or even certified, but there's a specific kind of cargo parachute called a small airdrop training bundle. I can pack these correctly and by the book in less than 15 minutes. I was challenged by someone who had 5 years experience in me to see who could pack the most in an hour. I had 6 while he was trying to argue with the quality control guy, who has been packing parachutes for 20 years, over how correct he did step 3. I had a good day beating the guy who just so happened to be the worst rigger in the world. I'm going to date myself here, but I was in undergrad when the video game Halo was released. I never really played video games, but at the time I had a boyfriend, I am a girl, who was really into it. We played a lot, even went to some college-based tournament games and did well. Fast forward some years later and my husband and I are at a house party. Someone turns on the Xbox and was looking for a 4th for Halo. My husband volunteers me. The guys were visibly not thrilled but played along. I wiped the floor with them. Eventually they decided to team up 3 against me. Still destroyed them. The whole party ended up crowding around us to watch. It was a great night. Smiley face. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at push-ups, but I've worked in the fitness industry for 20 years and work out myself fairly regularly. Doing 20 push-ups isn't anything to me. I was at a party that was attended primarily by what I would call hipsters. A guy, who had been drinking a fair amount, challenged me to 20 push-ups as fast as possible for $20. I won and got $20. Then another said he would do the same bet if we went right away, I guess thinking I was kinda tired. I beat him and got another $20. A few minutes later another guy did the same bet. It was an easy $60.